So the Fever did not get Gabby Williams. Williams heads to the Seattle Storm, which makes sense. She played there before, of course. That gives them a very imposing, lengthy team with McBeggar and Agwumake and what they'll be able to do there. I really was impressed by Gabby in the Olympics. She's got a lot of bounce, a lot of athleticism, skill, all those things. So that's a big pickup for Seattle, and that's a team that's trying to make a run, obviously, in the WNBA playoffs. But here's the thing. The Fever just beat the Storm, and they just beat them fairly soundly. And the Fever are also getting better. They're getting better because they're getting Temi Fagbenle back. And Fagbenle, if you recall, was really Indiana's second best player for the beginning of the season, at the beginning of the season. And Temi spoke to the press or the media at practice and had this to say about her return to practice.
What have you thought watching these last two games, seeing two straight really good performances from your team?
Oh, so proud of my team. In some ways, I'm just like, let me just keep watching and not mess up the mojo because we're looking great. But I'm glad to be on the way back and hopefully can add a little spark.
Not mess up the mojo. Good teammate there in Fagbenle, who it's going to be interesting when she does get back and is fully back in the lineup, how that impacts the rotation and the minutes. Because obviously, what she brought to the table was energy, speed. She caught and finished around the rim. In fact, at the beginning of the year, she did a better job as a receiver of Caitlin Clark passes than anybody. She moved without the basketball. She ran the floor, and she was consistent finishing around the basket. That wasn't the case the last couple games she played, but obviously we know she was dealing with a thumb issue at that point in time. So it's an easy explanation as to why her finishing may have gone down. Now, since she's been out, this is a different team. Aaliyah Boston has made huge strides and become, an indispensable offensive all-around force, really. But, as a force for the team. Obviously, Kelsey Mitchell has been going off in the backcourt. We saw Lexi Hull's emergence in the last game, so on and so forth. And when you look at the minutes up front court's starting to get a little crowded because you're going to have Boston, who obviously, has to be playing most of the game, every game. You're going to have Fagbenle back, and then you've also got Dantas and Melissa Smith. And Dantas, since they brought her over, I thought has done a nice job in the minutes that she's gotten. She's a spot-up three-point shooter. She's got that little turnaround game. She's got some nice size. And I would throw Katie Lou Samuelson in that mix, too, because I know even though she starts at the three, she's a little bigger. And Lexi Hull, whether Lexi Hull starts or not, is going to be finishing those games, I think, at the three position, which then takes away those minutes from Katie Lou Samuelson and makes it a juggling act. Now, Melissa Smith is going to be the one to watch, I think, because Smith has more of an offensive repertoire than Fagbenle. She is more overall, like if you need a bucket, that kind of thing, that's who you would go to, is Melissa Smith. But she's much less consistent on a night in and night out basis, I think, from an energy and decision-making standpoint. Like in the last game against the Storm, as good as that a performance as that was for the Fever, Smith was 0-4 in that game, just 3 points. Now, to her credit, she had 13 against the Mercury to go with 9 rebounds, and she's had plenty of big performances. I mean, before the game against the Storm, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight games in double figures. So that's not something you can just toss to the side or throw away. But it is going to be interesting to see how those minutes get distributed. And, I'm going to assume Fagbenle starts coming off the bench, but depending on how well she plays, does she eat into Smith's minutes? How does that get worked out? It's a good kind of challenge for Christy Sides as this team rounds into playoff form, right? And we're looking at a team that is looking more and more, not just like a playoff team, but a contending team, which is why I like to focus on the positive. It's why I like to focus on the positive, and it's why I'm not going to do a full video, but just spend a minute on this topic here. Cheryl Swoopes, I saw the podcast thing that got clipped. Let me just play it for you for a second of it from the Queens of the Court podcast, and you can decide for yourself.
Because we talked about the Olympic break, who it could help, who it could hurt. Mm-hmm. And I've seen the complete opposite with two teams, the 7th and 8th place team. I think the Olympic break really helped Indiana.
Absolutely.
Like, they look like they've spent time, whether they took time off or not, but they worked on stuff. This Indiana team, I'm going to say shout out to Lexi Hull. I'm a big Lexi Hull fan. Watch her in AU. Lexi Hull shot the leather off the ball in their game against Seattle and just couldn't miss. Kelsey Mitchell is just stroking. She is just shooting the basketball. Aaliyah Boston, almost a triple-double. I know we're talking about teams where they can move and things changing, but if Indiana continues to play the way they're playing like this, they too are going to move up in the standings.
Now, she went on to talk about the Sky and really over the top praised Angel Reese, right? And the thing everybody notices, she didn't mention Caitlin Clark. And I just got to tell you, y'all, I'm trying to focus on the positive here. I don't know. Did she not mention Caitlin Clark on purpose? Could be because of the blowback the last time around. Could be because she's trying to prove the point she made the last time around. Like, they're so good without Caitlin Clark. Swoopes has been a hater of Caitlin Clark. I think that's fairly clear to see. But I just don't know why everybody's giving it so much energy. And really, that's all I'm going to say about it, because I don't think it deserves that much energy when the motion and the energy is all like this, right? You know, I did the video earlier about the thing with the Storm and Skylar Diggins-Smith. Have y'all seen the numbers from that game? 2.2 whatever million people, the most watched WNBA game ever on ABC. So the league takes a break, they come back, and you still see the boom, 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 the movement when Caitlin Clark and the Fever are involved. You know, I saw that somebody post the highlights of various players on the WNBA's YouTube and the difference, the discrepancy in the Clark highlights versus everybody else. I mean, we all know what's going on. Now, that doesn't mean, you know, a game like the Sun game that was sold out in Boston can't be televised, right? Again, rising tide lifts all boats. We all want all that. But there's so many good things going on right now. The Fever are rolling. People love watching them. Obviously, Caitlin Clark has brought this, you know, difference-making energy to the league as a whole that I don't personally think it's worth it to spend so much time, you know, worried about what Cheryl Swoopes had or didn't have to say.